Thank you, and thanks, Beth. Before I start, I want to mention that the research I'll be talking about today was a collaborative effort between Stefano Gerlando, Alberto Acerbi, and James Serpel. Stefano and Alberto are mathematical whizzes that are interested in cultural evolution, and James, of course, is a noted authority on dog behavior. What my topic is today is why do our preferences in cultural forms, such as the music we listen to, the names we give our kids, and the types of animals we choose to live with continually change? Some shifts in our collective preferences reflect true progress. That is, newer variants become spectacularly popular because they're intrinsically better than the ones they replace. For example, iPods took off because they are better vehicles for storing and listening to music than compact discs, which themselves were superior to the scratchy vinyl records that some of you might remember from your misspent youth. However, other changes in mass taste do not represent progress at all. New variants replace old ones simply because humans are inveterate copycats. These non-functional shifts in cultural preferences take the form of fashion, changing fashion, a term that's usually applied to clothing, but which is equally applicable to preferences for, say, types of food, think, for example, raw fish, and genres of art and music. Some shifts in cultural preferences occur for no logical reasons. For example, the popularity of nose rings or wearing baseball caps backwards. Indeed, some forms of fashion seem quite maladaptive. For example, shoes that are nearly impossible to walk in. Today, I want to address the roles of function and fashion in the animals that we bring into our lives. And specifically, I want to ask, do dog breeds become popular because they are the canine equivalent of iPods? That is, they have behavioral qualities that make them better companions and easier to live with. Or are shifts in breed popularity simply the result of the same mindless crowd mentality that causes ebbs and flows in the hottest shoe styles? Social scientists who study cultural change love large data sets. And for this reason, baby names have become a favorite tool for researchers studying matters of taste. But purebred dog registries also are large data sets which offer a window into the dynamics of our changing cultural preferences. Several years ago, the American Kennel Club kindly provided me with the annual number of new puppy registrations for each recognized breed between 1926 and 2005. This represents nearly 54 million individual animals, and I want to point out Sam Gosling had 1 million in his data set, and I've got 54 million in my data set. Perhaps the largest data set certainly ever used in anthozoology. Individual animals from 160 breeds. Note that the AKC registry is not a perfect index of dog popularity in the United States. Does not include mixed breeds or some popular breeds such as pit bulls, and many people with purebred dogs simply do not bother to register their animals. However, we believe the unique size and completeness of this data set make it an excellent model for studying social processes that create preferences for types of pets, the types of pets we bring into our lives. Previous studies using AKC registrations by myself and my colleagues have shown that shifts in our choices of dogs illustrate several principles that are characteristics of imitation-driven fashion. The first is what I call the them that's got is them that gets effect, after a song by the blues singer Ray Charles. And this is the idea that popularity breeds more popularity. Statistical distributions in which most choices are concentrated in a handful of available options are referred to as power law distributions. When graph power law distributions sweep dramatically rapidly from left to right, which is why they're sometimes called distributions having a long tail. Alex Bentley and Matt Hahn have shown that these distributions are seen in a whole host of situations in which people more or less randomly copy each other, including Neolithic pottery styles, top 40 songs, and baby names. If we pick our dogs according to the same principles that govern the names we give our kids, that is, mass imitation, breed differences in puppy registrations should resemble long-tail distributions. Do they? And the answer is yes. This graph shows the frequencies of AKC registrations of puppies amongst the 100 most popular breeds in 2003. So this big line is the number of Labrador retrievers that were registered. They were the most popular dogs. This was golden retrievers, German shepherds, all the way down to the Harrier, which only had, has a couple dozen registrations a year. So we see that these do correspond to power laws. In this year, 2003, the top 20 breeds accounted for 80% of total registrations, AKC registrations. The bottom 20 breeds accounted for less than 1% of AKC registrations. And we've seen this distribution in virtually every year in the AKC record book. A second characteristic of fashion is that it's an ever-shifting cultural landscape in which there's constant and stable rates of turnover between what is hot and what is not. The topography of routes to pop culture success, however, can take different forms. This graph shows the slow and steady rise to popularity of the Labrador Retriever, still the most popular dog in the United States. However, this pattern is a bit more unusual. The meteoric rise and fall of popularity of the Irish Setter. In this breed, we see the classic boom and bust of a fad, a rapid rise followed by a rapid crash. With dog breeds, this pattern is actually quite common. Here you can see booms and busts in the popularity of a dozen breeds in which they were particularly pronounced. So this is the number of puppy registrations over time between 1946, actually, and about 2004 for those particular breeds. Now, Jonah Berger, a cultural anthropologist at the University of Pennsylvania, used similar booms and busts in baby names to uncover a third principle of changes in mass taste. And that is what goes up goes down. And the interesting thing is that they tend to go down at the same rate that they went up. And this this is Berger's data. This graph traces the popularity of three girls' names, and Charlene, Tricia, and Kristen. And as you can see, that Charlene sort of rises, fairly quickly, but slowly, and it goes down about the same rate. On the other hand, Tricia had this meteoric rise, the same thing we see in Irish Setters, and goes back again at the same rate. And it turns out that the rates of increase and the rates of decrease of fads are incredibly highly correlated. Well, is this true? Is this also true of dogs? And we have recently found that this is indeed the case. So fame is fleeting, and the faster a breed rises, the faster it falls. And this is data from, this is AKC data from 55 breeds that were showing peaks. And the horizontal axis is the rate of increase from slowly increasing breeds to rapidly increasing breeds. And this is slowly decreasing breeds, rapidly increasing breeds. And what you can see is that there's a direct and fairly powerful correlation. Dogs that get popular fast also crash in popularity fast. So when it comes to our preferences in both baby names and dogs, we are indeed copycats, but we are copycats that are always on the lookout for the next big thing. So there are striking parallels between the dynamics of shifts in the popularity of dog breeds and a completely arbitrary form of fashion, the names that we assign our children. This, however, does not bear directly on the question of whether breeds that have traits that make them better pets, and I use better in quotes, better pets, become more popular than breeds that are harder to live with. We've recently attempted to untangle this relationship between function and fashion in our choice of pets by examining the relationship between breed popularity and breed differences in behaviors, desirable behaviors. This study involved two large data sets. One's the AKC data set I've been talking about, and the other was provided by James Serpell in the form of scores on the Canine Behavioral Assessment Research Questionnaire, or the CBARQ, that many of you are familiar with. The CBARQ is a 100-item survey in which owners rate the severity or frequency of behaviors exhibited by their dogs. The dimensions include traits such as aggression, fear, excitability, energy, and trainability. The CBARQ can be taken online, and at the time we did the study, there were 12,000 surveys in the data set. The scale has excellent psychometric properties, and there are very large differences in the average CBARQ scores between animals of different breeds. Well, we looked at the relationship between breed differences in 14 CBARQ variables, and you can see them here: stranger aggression, owner aggression, dog aggression, all the way down to energy. And then we had our measures of dog breed, changing dog breed popularity, and we had 4 variables: total AKC registrations over time, volatility, how much the breed went up and down over the years, and for the breeds with peaks, the rate of increase and the rate of decrease. If breeds that make better pets become more popular, we would expect to find reasonably robust correlations between the number of puppy registrations and behavioral traits related to being a good pet, such as lack of aggression and fear and trainability. Was this the case? And here are the results, and I have to apologize. I swore to myself I would never show a slide like this. I would never show a slide with a long chain of numbers that nobody's going to bother to read, especially from the back of the room. But I had to do it this time. You can ignore most of those numbers. The point is that there's 54 correlations in there, the 14 Seabark variables, and the 4 measures of breed changes, popularity. The only thing that matters is the numbers on the bottom, which are the averages. And as you can see, all of the average correlations are close to 0. In short, there is little or no relationship between the quality of a breed, as indicated by the Seabark scores, and any of the indices of popularity. When correlated for multiple comparisons, the correlations in the matrix as a whole were not statistically significant, even given our large numbers. Granted, a few of these correlations were individually significant. These are indicated in blue. However, these tended to be small, and they tended to not make any sense. So you can see, for example, this correlation is significant. Why should there be a positive, significant correlation between aggression toward the owner and the popularity of a breed? Well, our interpretation is this is just random statistical chance. These analyses indicate that a breed's quality, as indicated by thousands of owner assessments, has surprisingly little relationship with the likelihood that it will become popular. So, several lines of evidence indicate that cultural shifts and preferences for types of pets are controlled by the same mass mentality that fueled changes in other forms of popular culture, such as hymnlines, baby names, web page hits, and top 40 songs, popular songs. Well, what are these? This line of evidence? Just to repeat what I've already argued. First, the distribution of purebred puppy registration conforms to a power law, as do other forms of pop culture. In this case, very few popular breeds account for the vast majority of registrations. Second, the rate of turnover amongst the top breeds is remarkably consistent over time. We've shown this in a recent paper. So as people get bored with what is presently hot, once fashionable breeds are replaced by new ones. Third, as with baby names, the more quickly a breed gets popular, the shorter it stays popular. And finally, and most importantly for this talk, there's little or no relationship between the qualities of a breed in terms of being a good pet and its chances of becoming highly popular. In short, we believe that changes in preferences for dog breeds in the United States reflect a facile, transient trends in pop culture rather than irrational choices for animals that are easy to live with. Sometimes this victory of style over substance is deleterious to animals. Take the English bulldog. The pictures on the right show changes that have occurred in the skeletal formations of bulldogs' heads over a mere 40 years as a result of the fact that enormous brachiocephalic heads became fashionable. The result was an animal that has been referred to as a veterinary rehab project. Bulldogs are prone to a host of disorders. These include cardiac arrest, jaw and dental problems, dermatitis, breathing difficulties. I mentioned farting on there, which to me is a problem. Not to me personally, but in dogs. The list goes on. With these persistent health issues, you would think that these breeds that bulldogs would be becoming unpopular. This is not the case at all. Nothing could be further from the case. The number of AKC puppy registrations from 1985 to 2005 are listed in this graph, and as you can see, they have gone up tremendously. Right now, the bulldog is the sixth most popular dog in the United States. I would argue that the sudden rise of bulldogs in popularity exemplifies the primacy of fashion in our choices of canine companions. A further question is, to what extent does this fashion model apply to other forms of pet keeping? Loving animals is not, despite what many of you would like to think, a human universal. And like clothing styles, the frequency of the form of fashion of pet keeping varies widely from culture to culture and over time. In the United States, canaries are now rare, but in the first part of the 20th century, they were the most popular pet in my country. In my lifetime, I've witnessed the rise and fall in popularity of baby turtles, parakeets, pot-bellied pigs, and pet rocks. Ironically, it appears to be the case that owning a purebred dog itself is a fad that is rapidly on the decline. This graph shows the number of American Kennel Club puppy registrations from 1927 to 2010. Once a hobby of the rich, pedigree dogs took off following World War II, but interest peaked in 1997, and since then, AKC registrations are in a death spiral. And so you may be asking yourself, if pedigree dogs are falling from fashion, what's the next big thing? The answer is we are in the midst of another shift in canine fashion, also fueled in part by imitation, but this time with a moral twist, and that is the popularity of the rescue dog. However, I want to end by going back to our original research question. What causes changes in the popularity of different types of dogs? Stefano nicely summarized our findings when he concluded, our data suggests that fashions in breed popularity are just that, fashions. They arise from social dynamics, crowd mentality, and not from any measurable characteristics of the breeds themselves.